Hi, friends. Host Eric here, host of Talking with Famous People. I want to respond to Hyjinx's comment here on the goodness awareness comes before goodness video. Hyjinx says, but this assumes that things that cause pain are bad and things that cause pleasure are good. But what is pain? What is pleasure? And why are pain and pleasure inherently bad or good, respectively? You're trying to derive an ought from an is here. For example, if I exterminated the entire human race, how can I determine if that's bad without tending to my personal feelings on the matter? Or for a TI user, how do they determine that it's somehow bad without referring to their own logical principles? The consequence of my action is that everyone is dead, but why is that bad to the universe? The stars on the sky don't align when I hug my brother, and meteors don't fall if I steal from a store. People sure like to dress subjective feelings in objective clothing and call it objective morality. I feel that humans are just desperate to find an objective meaning to their existence and fear what can become of pure freedom from these fictional universal strings we tie around our heart. Okay, so my first,
INTP.
you think ENTP or INTP?
INTP.
They self-identify as an FI user, but I
It's just it's a moody teenage INTP.
maybe. But the thing is, I think it raises some important questions, which is this is basically the moral relativist position is come on already. You cannot tell me these things are absolute and significant given the scope of the universe and the fact that we can't even come to agreement on it and all blah blah blah. Oh, that's not objective. Blah, blah, blah. That's a perfectly reasonable line of argumentation to make, and yet it's an inadequate way of parsing out morality because first we need to understand that morality means a couple of different things. On the one hand, it means what what you can't do without being bad. On the other hand, it might mean what you have to do in order to be good. And on the third hand, it might refer to a we. So that's what makes morality kind of challenging, is that you've got your individual ethical responsibilities, which nobody denies. The thing is, you might try to claim they're not universal, but that doesn't change the fact that if you were given a shovel and said, "Here, beat this toddler's head in real quick. You'll get away with it. Don't worry about it. There'll be no consequences at all. You'll still experience massive consequences unless you're a psychopath. You'll experience probably PTSD for the rest of your life after you've bashed that toddler's head in with a shovel." So there is an inherent human experiential quality to morality that can't be denied because it is true, it is possible to traumatize somebody and it is possible to not traumatize somebody. So on an experiential level, good and bad can be known through your own imagining of good and bad for yourself. If I experience emotional distress when I do harm to another, even if I think the harm is justified, I will err on the decision making vector of my emotional response to it. Because if I make somebody cry, I basically stop arguing right there. And I go, oops, I fucked up. And I do make people cry sometimes. Not too infrequently, actually. So um, that's how I know that I'm not a sociopath, is that I actually do feel bad. Like, I know what that feeling is. It's like, oh, fuck, you're, look, are you okay? Yeah, it's like that thing. And now that might not be proof for universal morality. I don't think it is at all. There are a lot of better proofs for universal morality than the one that is provided there. I, I would say that the best proof for universal morality is that the exception is an endorsement of slavery. That if you accept that you own your own body, then a universal morality naturally follows from it. If you don't accept that you own your own body, then you accept that it's not owned or that it is unownable or that it is owned by somebody else. But the fact is, by all meaningful definitions of ownership, we can own a body, namely our own, because we have control over it, we have sovereignty over it, we have ownership rights over it. And in fact, it's possible to own another person. We know that because there's been slavery. So it's not really a reasonable argument to say it's not possible to own a human being. It is possible. It's not really an argument to say that a human being is unowned because a human being is being controlled, namely by the entity within it. So it's necessarily the case then that the issue of ownership is one that must be determined, and once determined, the universal morality logically follows. However, you might say, but that axiom itself it's not binary like that. You can't say that I'm either owned or unowned or whatever. I refuse to engage on that status at all. And there's no reason why we should be compelled to frame the thing by engaging on that status. Well, I don't know. At that point, you're just saying, let's pretend that let's neither of us use any logic at all. And then that doesn't get you anywhere. And Hyjinx, it's your point that logic works against the universal morality. So it's kind of difficult for you to then dismiss a universal morality that's derived by appeal to axiomatic principles. Because if I can show you that what I just did, which is there's a set of alternatives, a finite and complete set of alternatives, exhaustive set of alternatives regarding ownership in the body, which I did, then that destroys your axiom claim. Because after all, it's got to be something. That's the only axiom. That nothing has no identity at all. Thoughts, anybody?
I'm not impressed with the objection.
Which objection?
The original one that basically abstracts everything into no meaning.
Are you talking about Hyjinx's attempt to go, well, look, you're not distinguishing between good and bad and pleasure and pain, and if they're identical, then you're talking about that distinction?
Yeah, I mean, because if everything ceases to exist and there is no more people, what's it matter except to their subjective opinion? It's just, I don't know. I just am not impressed with taking the logic train just one more block.
Okay, well, I mean, the thing I would note is it's a fair critique to say that if there's an objective universal morality, then it should persist in the absence of human beings. It's not correct, but it's a reasonable enough argument to make. And the reason it's not correct is because it's a contradictory premises fallacy. You can't imagine there not being any human beings to observe something because the thing that you're imagining unobserved by human beings is necessarily observed first by human beings to be analyzed at all.
Morality really it's kind of assumed that it only applies to human beings.
Well, I mean, I think in that way she was straw manning the universalist term a bit. She was saying, okay, universal and objective means it must exist outside of people, but it doesn't really mean that. It just means that
it's either going to exist within people or it's going to be a law of physics. This is not a law of physics. It's got a human component, so yes, I suppose it could be subjective.
But here's the point. What makes it objective or subjective is not its persistence in the absence of humans. Taylor's right about pointing that out for sure. But it's also not. But also your answer about conflating good and bad with pleasure and pain, and not being able to adequately define a moral distinction between good and versus a sensation distinction between pleasure versus a self-interest angle, like it's pragmatically wise. okay, it's true that the person you responded to didn't make that distinction, but it's not true that that distinction can't be made, and it's not true that making that distinction doesn't better represent reality than failing to make that distinction. So while you may have defeated the person you were arguing against, you didn't defeat the position at all. And I think with good reason you didn't defeat the position, because morality is universal in the sense that I don't want any other person on the planet to violate my rights. It's not like I want nobody to violate my rights except for Susie and Taylor. That I don't want them to violate my rights either. So it's universal from my perspective in terms of who I don't want to do violence to me. The answer is I don't want anyone to do violence to me. Now, you might say, those people over there want to be able to do violence to other people. So therefore, the morality is not universal. No, but the morality is universal. It's how we know they're fucked up.
Or ENFJs.
They're fun, ENFJs. They have a lot of words that sound just like they mean things.
It's transubstantiate. It's a long word. A lot of syllables in that same word.
Now, if there were no God, how could I pull so many bong rips and still be awake? If there were no God, why do I have Adderall?
Chemists.
But wouldn't it be immoral of me to deny you any of your claims?
No. Why would that be immoral?
I know it would bother you, and you have every right to believe whatever you want.
Okay, but that's the thing. You denying me, you're making your own claims then. So if I'm saying, hey, you can't deny my claims, then I can't deny your claims, and that's why it doesn't pass reciprocal burdens. That's why expression is exempted. But that's why we have to make a distinction between the physical and metaphysical worlds and exert metaphysical punishments for metaphysical crimes. That's why shaming is a good thing.
If believing in God was a metaphysical crime, you would be the only one hurt by me denying you the fact.
But it's metaphysical crimes aren't things like that. Metaphysical crimes are things like bullying somebody verbally. Right?
Yeah.
Wait, isn't that how you institute social change?
With shaming, right?
Right. So, then metaphysical violence can be good or bad.
Yeah.
So, different circumstances necessitate that there might be a situation in which it's best to bash in the toddler's head with a shovel.
So morals is outcome oriented.
No, that's the point. Is that there are circumstances, true, but there are clear, distinct ways to adjudicate each one. So basically, if the toddler was attacking you in a way that legitimately threatened your life and wouldn't stop until you finished with the last head bash, then I guess it would be legitimate. But we have clear, bright lines as to delineate those instances when it is and those instances when it's not. Reality tells us toddlers will not attack you with such violent force that an adult male can do nothing but bash its head in until it dies with a shovel. I'm pretty sure most people are not going to find a sympathetic jury for their self-defense claim. Why did you bash in that 2-year-old's head with a shovel? I was afraid for my life. If I'm a cop, maybe I get away with that, but...
We're enough seasons into The Walking Dead that a good lawyer could get a jury that would believe it.
I mean, if it's a cop who bashes a toddler's head in, he gets an award for bravery.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the point is, it's true that not every you can find exceptions to every general situation and say, but if the general situation manifested like this, then it would be okay. But that is proof of the universality of it because it accounts for all factors, right? So it says basically, you have a moral obligation not to interfere with the rights of another, and that to the apparent exceptions are actually examples of the other forfeiting their rights because they've committed some rights violation to begin with.
Okay, good point. I don't really, for some reason, I don't want to agree, but I do agree.
Thank you. Thank you for both of those. I appreciate both of those. Okay. Anybody else have any comments on universal morality? We didn't really get into God much. I'll say that for another video, maybe. But because I do have my proof of God's existence proof, which is not really a proof per se, but
it's a good accomplishment. But that's not proof.
That's why I say proof. Okay. It's different than a proof. It's a proof.
It doesn't get that word wrong.
Okay, it's a proof.
But universal morality.
It's your own personal magical
morals.
Say again, Susie.
People have different definitions of morality, so how can there be a universal one?
Well, everyone's definition of morality is the same insofar as it's a set of dictates regarding normative issues, what ought to be, rather than what is or what will be, either descriptive or predictive. So we know at least that we can narrow down morality to the adjudication of normative claims. Now, is there a single morality that does that correctly to the exception of all other moralities? Yes. It's called the negative rights framework. It logically follows from the fact that you own your own body. And if we all adhered to it, there wouldn't be any crime, there wouldn't be any oppression, there wouldn't be anything that was bad that wasn't just.
Wouldn't be any Muslims.
There wouldn't be any Muslims. Islam would be entirely different if people respected a negative rights paradigm as a universal morality. There wouldn't be any drug laws. There wouldn't be any bullshit. I advocate, as President Strauss in 2020, I will bring America to a bullshit-reduced future. I will reduce the total amount of bullshit in the present, and I will put in mechanisms in place to see to it that bullshit reduction be the way of the future as well. And gradually, bit by bit, we can return this country to a bastion of liberty, justice, and peace. Amen.
Hey, what percentage of the women's vote do you think?
All of them?
Even the ones you yelled?
I wasn't wearing this hat last night, Taylor. When I go on the campaign trail, the Puss Slayer hat goes on, and all the chicks vote for me, okay? And if this doesn't work, Taylor, then you schmooze them for me. You're going to be on the ticket or something. I assume you'd be my vice presidential candidate, but I think I already offered the position to somebody else, but that's okay. I'll kick them out if I have to. Okay. So yeah, I think you'd be a good vice president. You do really well with getting the chick votes, and I could get the angry white males, and together with the chicks and the angry white males, we're sure to win.
I think angry white males is more my niche too.
No, you're the puss, the puss whisperer.
I don't even want that title.
Hello. I picture you leaning down, getting up close, going, "Hello there. What seems to be the problem?"
Are you still recording?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Thank you, Susie.
You have to leave it.
And thank you for watching Talking with Famous People.